Hello, good afternoon. Check. Testing one, two, three. Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to Youth and Agriculture, Innovation and Digitization projects of the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service in commemoration of International Youth Day 2021. Senator the Honorable Avinash Singh currently holds office as the Senator and Minister in the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries. He was previously appointed as PS. Okay, I'll continue. He was previously appointed as Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries in September 2015, and Opposition Senator in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago from 2013 to 2015. The Honorable Minister Avinash Singh is a graduate of the University of the West Indies with a double major in agricultural science and environmental and natural resources management. He is currently pursuing a master's in business administration and is also a farmer. Members of the panel, thank you for joining us this evening, and to our viewers on Facebook and YouTube. You are also invited to join the conversation, share your thoughts and questions in the comments below, and we will be sure to respond. Next, we have Dr. Janelle Joseph. Dr. Joseph is an instructor at the Department of Agricultural Economics and Extension, UWI St. Augustine, where she has been a faculty member since 2016. She lectures agricultural extension and collaborative strategies towards watershed management in Trinidad. She is also the co-chair of the Caribbean Agricultural Extension Providers Network and actively collaborates in several regional and local consultancy projects relating to capacity development. Keep going. Ms. Ramstad is a logical and progressive farmer who believes in empowering others. She is a fourth-generation farmer who holds a Bachelor's of Science degree in biochemistry with a minor in chemistry. She is also currently pursuing her Master's of Science in Food and Technology at the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine.
Hi, Dr. Joseph, Mr. Clark, Ms. Cupid, Ms. Rampasad, Senator Singh. Right. So far so good. We are seeing everyone. So I just want to test everyone's audio as well. So when I call you, so that we won't all speak at once, when I call you, you just put on your mic and just say 2 words. Judith Chase cannot write right now. Okay. So we'll start with Minister Cummings.
Okay, are you hearing me?
Hearing you loud and clear.
Okay. Minister
Thank you
Singh,
very
I
much.
have a background like yours.
Good afternoon, Minister. That's actually that background is actually one of the recipients of our 100,000 grant funding. So you can see where he spent his money.
Excellent, excellent. I can see that.
Nice. So we're hearing you two ministers loud and clear. Dr. Joseph, on to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Happy to be here today. Hope you'll hear me as well as can be.
Hearing you loud and clear. We are seeing you a little bit dark. I'm not sure if that can change right now, but we are seeing you.
Okay.
For what it's worth, we are seeing you.
Okay.
Mr. Marvin Clark.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Marvin Clark here. Pleasure to be here. Are you hearing me loud and clear?
Loud and clear. Ms. Cupid.
Hi, afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. Loud and clear.
Very well.
Ms. Rampasad.
Okay, sorry, my mic was muted. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Yes, we are seeing you and hearing you. If you can just shift your chair a little bit so it can be to the center of your screen, we're seeing 3/4 of your body. Perfect. Your mic is muted though, so if you're speaking and not hearing.
Okay.
Good. Perfect. Thank you very much. Mr. Sanon. Oh, I see them on my screen here. Okay, Shane John, can you just test your audio and video, please?
Ms. Boros, I'll be with you in a second. Good afternoon. I'll come in shortly. 1 sec.
No problem.
Hi, afternoon. Are you hearing me? I'm just finishing setting up my lighting, so I'll be putting on my camera, but I hope that you're hearing me.
I am hearing you. As soon as you're ready to test the video, please let us know.
Okay, thank you.
So I think that's it for now with the participants. So once Mr. John and Mr. Sanon is ready, we'll just test and then we should be starting promptly at 5:30. Everything seems to be a go for us to start on time. So for those of you who already tested your camera, if you want to take it off until we are ready to start, that would be fine. Just please stay around your computer so that you can know when we are about to start.
Excuse me, Ms. Boros, this is a little better. Trying to adjust to the light here.
Yes, it's showing a little bit clearer now.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Sign me up, I come for it. Boss lady, I come for this one. Sign me up, I come for this one. Sign me up, I come for this one. I gotta work it. Get you right away. Come it back in it. Oh, you walk in front of me. So could I walk in front of me? And I go come here right away. And let me come it back in it. And I go walk it properly. Boss lady, I come for this one. Sign me up, I come for this one. Sign me up, I come for this one. Sign me up, I come for it. Boss lady.
Thank you. So in the interest of time, we would love for you all to stick to the allotted time that you think is appropriate for your responses, and also take into consideration how many questions we have to go through, and to the other panelists as well. But in the event that it's a bit difficult for you to stick to time, I am going to give some cues, and that is going to be your indication to sort of wrap up. So when I say okay, during your little presentation, and it'll be me trying to respond to something. When I say okay, definitely that's a little indication to see how fast you can wrap up. And anytime I mention right before I invite you, if you can briefly explain something to us, that is also an indication for you to be quicker with your time. So if you can just be so kind to just understand that we are strapped for time. It's an hour and 30 minutes, and there's so many of you, and we want to hear everybody. So those are just some guidelines for us for the evening. Okay.
Mr. John, are you ready?
Yes, I am. Good afternoon again.
Okay, nice. So I'm seeing you and I'm hearing you loud and clear.
Great. Do I need to make any adjustments to my camera?
Nope, you're good.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Hello and happy International Youth Day and welcome to Youth in Agriculture, Innovation and Digitization, a project of the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service in commemoration of International Youth Day. This evening, we join 192 countries around the world in celebrating this day, which since 1998 has given youth a voice and has celebrated their initiatives and achievements. I'm Rukiah Scott, and I'm your moderator for today's discussion, where we look at agriculture from the farm to the table to the bank and so much more. We have an extremely exciting panel for you here this afternoon, but before we introduce them, let us hear from our host for this evening's discussion, the Honorable Foster Cummings, Minister of Youth Development and National Service. The Honorable Foster Cummings is a consummate professional and lifelong businessman, and he began his political career in 2008 as a temporary government senator and served in this capacity until April 2010. He continued his political career serving as an opposition senator from 2015 and as a government senator until his appointment as a parliamentary secretary in the Ministry of Rural Development and Local Government in January 2020. He was later appointed as a minister in the Ministry of Works and Transport in August 2020, before his current office appointment as minister at the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service. Minister Cummings' proficiency at corporate governance is bolstered by a Bachelor of Science degree in political science and an associate's degree in cooperative studies. A lifelong pioneer for youth advocacy and development, he has held many leadership roles in his youth in both the community and political arenas. Minister Cummings remains passionate about the development of all young people and remains committed to creating and facilitating an array of programs that target their developmental needs and support the youth development agenda of Trinidad and Tobago. So ladies and gentlemen, to all of our viewers right now, let us welcome Minister Cummings.
Thank you, Ms. Scott, our moderator for this afternoon's activity. And permit me to acknowledge my colleague, Senator Avinash Singh, who is Minister in the Ministry of Agriculture, Lands and Fisheries, our distinguished panelists, members of the viewing public on Zoom, Facebook, and YouTube, young people of Trinidad and Tobago, good afternoon. I'm extremely pleased this afternoon to address you as we prepare to engage in what promises to be an exciting, edifying, and enlightening discussion with you, the young people of Trinidad and Tobago. Today also marks a very significant day on the United Nations calendar of observances, and I dare say one of the most noteworthy ones, International Youth Day. On behalf of the executive and staff at the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service, I extend warm wishes to all the young people of Trinidad and Tobago on this occasion. Happy International Youth Day 2021. This year's theme, Transforming Food Systems, Youth Innovation for Human and Planetary Health, seeks to amplify youth efforts collectively and individually to restore the planet and protect life while integrating biodiversity in the transformation of food systems. A global effort that will not be achieved without the meaningful participation of young people. It was within this theme that we developed this webinar, themed Youth in Agriculture, Innovation and Digitization. We anticipate that this will be one of many interactive webinars on pertinent issues affecting youth. Future leaders, I'm quite passionate about youth advocacy and advancement, having had a trajectory of youth involvement spanning over 2 decades. And of foremost importance to me is youth in agriculture. I'm sure many of you would have observed my attention to agriculture and youth involvement. You see, agriculture is innate in me. I grew up in an agricultural community of Indian Trail in central Trinidad, observing my parents and neighbors till the soil and turning seedlings into sustainability for my family and neighbors, which later on became a vehicle for my family's economic development and a positive conduit for myself. As I got older and more intimately involved in the family business of small-scale farming and vending, I learned discipline, tolerance, productivity, and hard work, all traits that I took with me throughout my life that have contributed to the person I am today. I also learned what it means to generational wealth, a skill to pass on to my children, sharing lessons that will shape their outlook on life, and most importantly, understanding the value of fervent commitment. When you plant a seed, you commit yourself to the entire process. It's gratifying when you get the fruits, get to see the fruits of your labor. Young men and women, you will be asking yourselves, what does that have to do with today's session? I shared my journey so you know that I'm cognizant of your journey and sacrifice in business development. More so, I share with you to acknowledge the astronomical strides that we have made in agriculture from my youthful days to now. No longer are our agricultural exploits, whether arable farming or pastoral farming, and the like, seen as something only for a small man in rural Trinidad and Tobago. Agriculture is now being recognized across the globe as a viable source of economic sustainability. I'm certain that Dr. Joseph would concur that there has been a definite increase in youth pursuing areas of study related to food and agriculture, which further solidifies that agriculture has caught the attention of the younger generation and should be seen as large-scale commerce. Seeing so many of you tuned into this webinar reassures me that we are indeed on the right track at the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service. This evening, you have the opportunity to engage with and learn from leaders in the diverse field of agriculture. Among them, my colleague, Senator Avinash Singh himself, a successful farmer and agripreneur, and Mr. Nasha Cupid, co-owner of Trace Farms in Tobago, and Shane John, newly elected president of the Trinidad Youth Council. I encourage you to grasp this opportunity to send your comments and questions in on our Zoom and Facebook chats, and join us as we discuss youth in agriculture, innovation, and digitization. Thank you very much, Ms. Scott.
Thank you, Minister, for your very encouraging words. And I am sure everyone is very excited to have you here with us. Now, before we continue, I want to hear from Trinidad and Tobago. I want to hear where are our viewers from. So drop in the comments where from Trinidad and Tobago are you from? We really want to know. And I would love to encourage everyone to please drop your questions, your concerns, your queries in the comment section on Facebook and on YouTube. And for those who are joining us on Zoom, it is super important, and we want to be able to engage with you because this webinar is all about you and opportunities for you. Now, please be reminded to use our hashtags, hashtag youth in agriculture and hashtag MyDNSTT. Those are the hashtags we are going to be using for this evening's program, and we want to encourage everyone to participate as much as possible. So I'm seeing in the comments, we have Arima, Mount Hope, Gasperlo, Cuba, Rio Claro, Claxton Bay, Freeport. We have from Tobago, Arima, Moruga, Mount Lambert, Sandy Grande, Canupia, Pleasantville. So we're definitely seeing that we have persons from all over Trinidad and Tobago, Waterloo, Chaguanas. I find we have a lot of people from Rio Claro actually tuning in. I've been seeing it in the comments quite a lot. So thank you so much for everyone from all over Trinidad and Tobago who is joining us here today. So now that we know who is with us and where you all are from, let's meet our panelists. Now we have a dynamic lineup for you here this afternoon. We have persons from all walks of life and who have so much to contribute to this discussion on youth in agriculture. So first up, we have Senator, the Honorable Avinash Singh. He currently holds office as Senator and Minister in the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries, and he was previously appointed as Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry in September 2015 and Opposition Senator in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago from 2013 to 2015. Minister Singh is a university graduate with a double major in agricultural science and environmental and natural resources management. He is currently pursuing a master's in business administration and is also a very successful farmer. Honorable Senator, it is wonderful to have you here with us today. Now, members of the panel, thank you so much for joining us this evening, and to our viewers from all over Trinidad and Tobago, and to, of course, to the viewers on Facebook and YouTube. We really want you to join into the conversation. We have our ministers here, and we have many persons who have a wealth of knowledge, and we really want you to partake in this discussion. So remember to use the hashtags, and remember to drop your comments in the comment section on Facebook and YouTube and in Zoom. So let me introduce our other panelists. We're going to start with Dr. Janelle Joseph. Dr. Joseph is an instructor at the Department of Agricultural Economics and Extension, UWI St. Augustine, where she has been a faculty member since 2016. She lectures agricultural extension, agribusiness, and entrepreneurship courses. Her PhD research focused on optimizing collaborative strategies towards watershed management in Trinidad, and she is also the co-chair of the Caribbean Agricultural Extension Providers Network and actively collaborates on several regional and local consultancy projects relating to capacity development. Her future research plans are aimed at capacity development and strengthening of agricultural extension and advisory services throughout the Caribbean. Ms. Batri Rampasad is a logical and progressive farmer who believes in empowering others. She is a fourth-generation farmer who holds a Bachelor of Science degree in biochemistry with a minor in chemistry. She is also pursuing her Master's of Science in Food and Technology at the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine. Thank you, Ms. Rampasad, for being here with us today. Moving right along, we have Mr. Marvin Clark, banker turned teacher. He has 17 years of service under his belt. He currently teaches agricultural science at the Mayaro Secondary School, where he prepares students for the TTEC examinations and a life of entrepreneurship and national service. His passion for teaching and agribusiness is bolstered by a bachelor's degree in business administration and a Bachelor of Education degree with a specialization in agricultural science. He is the former president of the National 4-H Council of Trinidad and Tobago and currently sits as the president of the Nariva Mayaro 4-H District Council. Thank you, Mr. Clark, for being here with us today. We now have Mr. Jody White, who is an award-winning Trinidadian entrepreneur, having started his journey at the age of 23. He is the owner of Slim Down 316 Limited and is presently focused on sustainable agricultural development through the commercialization of value-added processed foods. He believes that there is much untapped potential in the agro-industry and continues to focus on research and development as an important tool to bring about change in the agricultural sector. Thank you, Mr. White, for being here with us today. Mr. Alpha Sanon, motivational speaker, farmpreneur, and agri-youth advocate. Alpha Sanon is the founder of Y Farm. We help youth farm, an award-winning nonprofit organization that pioneers agricultural education entertainment. Mr. Sanon is the creator of the world's first food and nutrition security superheroes, Agriman, and photosynthesis that teaches youth the how-to and why of farming. He is a graduate of the University of the West Indies and an alumnus of the 2016 Young Leaders of America's initiative led by former US President Barack Obama. Most recently, Alpha was recognized as the Social Entrepreneur of the Year by CEMEX Tech Mexico and the Ashoka organization. Thank you, Alpha, and thank you for bringing Agriman to all of our lives. Moving on, we have Mr. Shane John, who is a former student of the Queen's Royal College, who is passionate about youth advocacy and youth development in Trinidad and Tobago. Shane still plays an active role in the development of youths in his alma mater, teaching parang, art, and calypso to students. In 2017, he was appointed Assistant Treasurer to the Trinidad Youth Council and currently holds the position of President of the said council. Mr. Don is also a first-year law student at the University of London. And going to our sweet sister aisle, Ms. Tanisha Cupid, all the way from Tobago. She is a lab technologist at the Plant Tissue Culture Laboratory in Tobago and holds a Bachelor of Science degree in biology with a specialization in microbiology and biotechnology. The lab sees the mass propagation of plants from tissues, and her work in this area gives her the opportunity to contribute significantly to the agricultural sector. Her interest in plants, specifically the use of biotechnology, started during her time at university. A registered farmer, Tanisha is the co-founder of Trace Farms, a seasoning and herbs company in Tobago. Since its inception, Trace Farms has evolved, now supplying supermarkets on the island with their range of seasoning blends. So, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard it for yourself. We have quite a dynamic panel this afternoon, and we're going to get straight into the discussion, and we're going to be asking very important questions that you will want to hear the answers to our panelists. So let's get started, and Minister Cummings, we're going straight to you. Why do you think youth in agriculture is important?
I might be biased because I do have, some attraction to agriculture based on my history. But as we would know, I think we need to educate young people in agriculture and expose them to the opportunities and prospects that exist in this sector. I mean, if we look at the theme for International Youth Day, which is transforming food systems, it's apt to what we as a government are as well pursuing for young people in Trinidad and Tobago. Globally, youth in agriculture has moved up the development agenda as we see the rise in youth unemployment and therefore an increase in agricultural opportunities for young people as move away from traditional job opportunities to what we see as the new opportunities for agriculture. So that I think that is the direction which the young people have to go in terms of moving into the agricultural sector. I don't know whether my friend and colleague, Minister Singh, would like to add anything to that.
Yes, of course. Thank you for your answer. And I definitely agree with you. And I actually want to ask, Minister Singh to add his thoughts on the importance of youth in agriculture.
Certainly. Thank you, Ms. Scott, for the opportunity. And thank you, Honorable Minister Cummings, for this brilliant, production today. I'm so happy to be here. So the importance of agriculture to young people. I want to tie it into something that the Honorable Minister Cummings would have said in his opening remarks when he referred to our national watchwords, discipline, tolerance, and production. I want to tie that concept into agriculture. Discipline. In my opinion, agriculture teaches young people responsibility. And when I say responsibility, I refer to love and care in relation to animal, livestock, and even plants. And from a tender age, all of us, I'm sure, had to do that experiment in biology and chemistry, put a seed in a napkin and water it and tend to that. And then you learn the cotyledons and all of that, the science behind agriculture. So it teaches you as a young person that discipline to care for this plant and animal because it requires food, water, and so on. Tolerance in agriculture, I think with the wide, diverse cross-section of experts and persons we have present here today, agriculture now has morphed into a technological advancement where all of us, we appreciate each other's opinion and techniques. Whether we agree or not, we still appreciate it. So it teaches us that level of tolerance. And production, which is the nice one, which I want to always gravitate towards, of creating something, manufacturing something. And when you manufacture something, it leads you to profitability. So youth, I want all young people to see agriculture, as I have done in my past, and Minister Cummings certainly knows, see agriculture as a noble profession. All right, so you utilize this profession and you make money out of it. So at the end of the day, and be profitable. So in a nutshell, that is what I see the importance of agriculture in terms of the young people gravitating towards it. So thank you, Ms. Scott, for the opportunity.
And thank you so much, Minister, for your answer. I definitely love that perspective of discipline, tolerance, and production, and really, marrying that with the youth of our nation. So, Minister Cummings, I want to just go right back to you. You mentioned about youth in agriculture and so many opportunities, and we want you to share with the audience, what are some of those prospects in the agricultural field?
So, when we talk about agriculture, we are just not talking about the traditional agriculture that we know, tilling the field and planting and reaping crops. We now have the term coined agripreneurship, which I learned from Alpha Sema, who is with us here this evening, and agribusiness. And we have a lot of persons on our panel who are actively involved in agribusiness. I mean, Minister Singh is an example of that himself. And if you look at the value chain, there are countless opportunities. There's the production, there's the processing and retailing, then you have the packaging, the warehousing, the distribution, and then if you expand to the business side of it, you do finance, the marketing, and the management, all aspects of business, but all now part of that agribusiness sector that we're discussing. So that there's a wide opportunities and prospects for young people in agriculture, in both in the traditional forms of business and, of course, in terms of food production for both the local and the international markets.
So we're talking about opportunities in agriculture, and of course, we are trying to move away from that thinking that it's really only one thing. We're trying to show people that this is an industry on its own, So moving on to Ms. Tanisha Cupid, whilst we're on this topic of opportunity in agriculture, being, having this company Trace Farmers in Tobago, what do you think are some of the real opportunities for agriculture?
Right. Hi, good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Special good evening to Minister Singh and Minister Cummings and my distinguished panelists. Yes. Opportunities in agriculture. It is endless. And because I don't want to take up the whole evening, I will just put it into a little concise thing for my youths, right? It transcends the land. So you're looking at forestry, you're looking at fisheries, and you're also looking at the field. When we talk about the field, you're looking at livestock, crop production. Now, if you want, you could do it like me, right? I like the lab. Right, so agriculture, sometimes you think that agriculture would box you in, you could only be outside, and that is really not the case. Yeah, you can be inside of the lab, and you could also be in the field as well. So I think that it transcends outside, it transcends land. You could go into the sea, you can fish. So there are several opportunities. You could get into plant pathology, you could get into entomology, and of course, I have to put in a plug right here. You can get into plant tissue culture, where you mass produce plants from tissues. And just to break that down real quick, because we're mass producing plants from tissues. Yes, we're mass producing plants from tissues. It is essentially cloning, right? And you're able to produce disease-free plants, right? Where you are able to give planting material, provide planting material, high quality planting material to farmers in the field. So agriculture is about integration. And so we no longer boxing in agriculture to just outside. It's about integration. And that is what I think that one of the things that we need to take away when it comes to agriculture today.
Integration and opportunity. And I think those are two words that, young people really want to hear in today's world, opportunity and integration, because we want to be part of that process, and we want to know that the future industries has opportunities for us, and that we could present an opportunity to that industry. I just want to take 1 minute to kind of recognize that we actually have an international audience here with us today. We have folks from Belize, and we also have folks from New York City. So thank you so much for joining us. This webinar has gone beyond the borders of Trinidad and Tobago, and we are streaming internationally. And we welcome you all into this discussion about youth in agriculture, innovation, and digitization. So moving right along to the next question, I want to invite Mr. White from 360 Slim Down Limited. Now, Minister Cummings mentioned earlier on about this value chain. You have focused on an interesting end of the agricultural value chain. Can you tell us about some of the prospects that you see in your area?
The thing for me is that farming is a challenge. I didn't grow up in a farming family, and I respect the level of difficulty that farmers face. I focus on the processing side of it because for me, my passion comes from marketing. And, it's one thing to think about food and growing food, but the opportunities that present themselves when you process it into something different, there's a level of creativity that it allows you to have. And, when the world was shutting down for COVID, that's when I had my best sales because people had to eat, So the thing is that to position yourself in the agro industry different from everybody else, you have to kind of think outside of the box, see what differently you can do. And getting into processing is something that, I would encourage everybody who wants to get into agriculture to focus on. It's really, finding different uses for the same crops that exist.
So we're recognizing now that agriculture has opportunities, endless opportunities. There are various things that you can do within the agricultural sector. But I want to direct this question back to Minister Cummings. As the minister responsible for youth development, we know that it may be a sort of challenge to get young people involved in agriculture. So seeing that you're essentially responsible for all of us, how do you think youth can become engaged in agriculture?
Well, let me just say that I want to refer all of us to the National Youth Policy that is an approved policy by the government, 2020 to 2025. And Pillar 6 speaks to emphasizing youth contributions to rural transformation, agricultural production, and food security. Now, you would know that the government has introduced a program to revitalize the youth camps. That is the Presto Presto, Chatham, El Dorado, and has also announced the construction of a new youth camp in Wallerfield and the transformation of the Shagaramas Convention Center also to a youth camp, what we now call the Vidaps. And all of those locations will have, as part of its curriculum, agriculture and agribusiness. The government has also announced the construction of a farm school in Moruga, and that school will be dedicated to agricultural training on both theory and practical level, and therefore we look forward to the establishment of that school, that farm school in Moruga. And the government has announced a homestead program which will involve bringing idle state land into agricultural production. And this program is specifically geared towards attracting young people. We will run a 2-year training program, one that will deal with the theory aspect of it, and the other year would be the practical aspect on the land itself. And upon successful completion of that program, young persons will have access to state land in an environment where they will be monitored and evaluated, and where the marketing side of it will also be addressed by NAMDEVCO. And then you also have the technical training and expertise coming from Minister Singh's ministry, Minister Rambarat and Minister Singh, and the Ministry of Agriculture will give that kind of technical expertise. So that there's a lot of opportunity based on the government trust in agriculture. We are determined to bring youth into agriculture, to give them the training and to give them the opportunity to take active part in the agricultural pursuits.
So I'm hearing a lot of education and I'm hearing a lot of training, which of course is, an excellent way to get young people involved, because one of the things that people often say about young people is that we don't have the knowledge or the experience. And this is how we get the experience. This is how we garner the knowledge through education and through training. So it's a pleasure to see the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service embarking on this new venture. So Mr. Wyfarm himself, Alpha Senate, you have been, spending a lot of time working with young people. So what do you think? How can we get more young people engaged in agriculture? We actually want you to share some of your secrets with us here today.
All right, thanks a lot, Ms. Scott. So, pleasant good afternoon to everyone, all my fellow colleagues and ministers and, the general audience who's there. Very good discussion thus far. I think for us at Y-Farm, and as the name indicates, Y-Farm, we tend to start with why. Ensuring that young people can understand why they do something before the how to do it is what we begin with. And we do this in a very engaging way. So we like to say the problem is creating youth engagement, and the solution is creatively engaging youth. So via our agri-edutainment tools, educational entertainment, we ensure that we find a way to make agriculture cool, right? So of course, using our superhero characters, using music, poetry, communicating that message is what is of absolute importance. The most important way that you could communicate to an audience is via the arts, and the highest form of communication is via music. Some people will argue that they might say dance. But what is important for us in communicating this is finding a way that reaches that target audience. No longer could we just stand up with a big textbook and try to engage young people in agriculture. We must do it in this fun and interactive and attractive way. And as I say, starting back with that why, I like to say, you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. You teach a man how to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. But when you teach that man or woman why to fish, it brings a different context into why they're going to do this. They're going to pass that on for generations and generations and feed communities and communities just by passing on that why. So that is a bit of our trade secrets there. And I encourage those of you who's in that field of youth development and working with young people in agriculture to be able to learn from this. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Alpha. And I really like that saying, and the thinking behind it to really get persons to see this more than just a survival tactic or just one other thing to do, but it's really about, a lifestyle and a livelihood out of it. So thank you so much for that. Now, in any discussion, it's really important for us to be as intersectional as possible. And we really want to bring in the gender aspect now into this discussion about youth in agriculture. And I pose this question to Ms. Rampasad. As a fourth generation farmer, more so a female, how difficult has it been for you to be successful in this field? And perhaps what can you say about women in agriculture from 2021 onwards?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Special good afternoon to Minister Cummins and also Senator Singh. Of course, to our moderator this afternoon as well, Ms. Scott, and to all the other panelists. Being a woman, a female in agriculture, to be honest, I don't see it as a unique perspective or being unique at all, because I grew up in a family where the woman in the family has always been very, very active in agriculture. Sorry. And so, I'm based on my perspective, it's not something unique. However, it does have its challenges when we go out there, and especially being a young female, when you try to do business or engage persons to look at you as a business person, especially being such a young person as well. it's difficult to gain that level of respect from them and so on. However, as it relates back to females in agriculture, like I would have said, it's not new to have females in the sector. They've been in the sector for a long time. Some of the challenges that I face personally, however, is dealing with, based on crop production, that is dealing with the physical strain of the day-to-day activities. And in addition to that, because our culture is using pesticides and chemical pesticides and so on, as a female and a young female as well, it does bring into concern, the biological effects of childbearing and the potential danger that happens there. For young women that are interested in getting into the field of agriculture, though, this is just my opinion. Again, I will recommend not getting into that crop production. However, I will more encourage that they get involved in maybe post-harvest handling of your produce, processing, marketing, definitely marketing, because that's one of the areas that we definitely need more emphasis on, and in order to see profits in the sector. And so I encourage women to most definitely look into these fields, and more so research and development. As a small island state, it's important that we also focus on research and development. As you know, many persons may argue that we have or we don't have enough land. But to be honest, we really don't have enough land if we look at one commodity to really be economically sustainable to compete with global prices of any particular commodity. So with the space that we do have locally and available to us, maybe research and development is our best solution in moving forward. And this is a field that women could most definitely have a great impact.
Thank you so much for your perspective on that. And I definitely encourage, women out there to really get more involved in agriculture. As Ms. Rampersad clearly stated to us, there are numerous opportunities, and women have been in agriculture, almost from the beginning of time. You can almost say that women have always been part of the agricultural movement. So it's great to see that. And of course, we want to encourage more women to join the movement. So now moving on to one of our younger panelists here, Mr. Shane John. As president of the Trinidad Youth Council, what are your thoughts on engaging more young people into agriculture?
Thank you very much, Ms. Scott, and may I say happy International Youth Day to all the young people of Trinidad and Tobago, and permit me to say special good evening to Minister the Honorable Foster Cummings, Minister of Youth Development and National Service, as well as Minister in the Ministry of Agriculture, Senator the Honorable Avinash Singh. This topic is very, very intricate because it's a topic that we don't necessarily see when we celebrate International Youth Day. So I think definitely now is a step in the right direction. One of the things for me is that there are a lot of young people now getting involved in agriculture. Actually, to name a few, a former Gill Vice President, in UWI actually completed his bachelor's degree, Mr. Tariq Ali, in agricultural specialization for crop science, and that is a movement. But for me, in terms of the question, Rakaya, one of the things and three major areas we have to look at is one, adding agriculture to our curriculum, two, youth farmers giving a voice, and also three, innovation, whereby we introduce new technologies to making the system more manageable and definitely more being able to integrate into all sectors. One of the first things we have to do from those 3 points, Rakaya, is that what we have to look at is the voice, and the voice of the young person that is involved in the agricultural sector. The other thing is that the Honorable Minister Singh spoke to financial grants. The next step is ensuring that young people actually know that these things are available to them. So there is definitely some sort of disconnect because the government is now on this drive. And I must say that this webinar hosts and intends to educate the man on the ground who does not know that these things are available to him. In terms of valuing the profession of agriculture, time and time again, you see that there is a focus on STEM education. There needs now to be a transition into accepting all fields as very important, and you can reach as successful. And success is not only lawyer and doctor. So that is something definitely. Scholarships for students studying food production is something that we have to now look towards. Also, in terms of agriculture as a vocational skill, it's something that has to be reintegrated within the education system. And I know that the Honorable Minister spoke towards that in terms of Minister Foster Cummings and speaking to the different research sectors and research centers. So I definitely look forward to seeing how that works. And something that state lands would have spoken to also land ownership. That is something that definitely needs to be discussed, and also loan sensitization. I know I'm giving a mouthful, Ms. Scott, but loan sensitization in terms of young people, when you look at being able to qualify for loans to build their business and build opportunities, sometimes the grant that the government provides may not be enough to build the empire that they are looking to. So we definitely have to develop that sort of education towards young people to be able to qualify for loans, and also integrating that with the Trinidad and Tobago mortgage finance that offer loans at a lower rate in terms of interest, 2% and 5% maybe. And the last thing, for underscoring the major point, that in terms of agriculture, it can now become a next large sector for our nation's economy in terms of being self-sufficient, Trinidad and Tobago becoming self-sufficient in the food economy. And that is something that we can definitely talk about. And Senator the Honorable Avinash Singh spoke about it in his opening remarks, where he spoke about employment, and Minister Cummings underscored the line of employment. So these are the things that we have to start to discuss. And once again, I want to thank the Honorable Minister Foster Cummings for having the Youth Council voice here, and also to you, Madam Moderator, Ms. Scott, for the opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shane. And I think we have to acknowledge that the young people in Trinidad and Tobago today are coming with the solutions, right? So thank you so much, Shane, for actually sharing those solutions and what young people would actually like. You know, it's way more than just a grant, but that sustainability training as well is super important, because this is something for the long run and not for the short run. So thank you so much for that. Now, ladies and gentlemen, please be reminded to use our hashtag Youth in Agriculture and to use the hashtag MyDNSTT. We want you all to interact with us and send us your questions. We will be coming to that section shortly where we will be addressing your questions specifically, so keep them coming. Now, we've spoken about opportunities. We've spoken about engaging young people. Now, we actually have the 4-H Club of Trinidad and Tobago who works with young people and aims to empower young people with these skills for a lifetime. So, Mr. Clark, this is over to you now. How do you see agriculture being incorporated in that youth arena?
Thank you, Ms. Scott. And this has been a very robust discussion, I must say. Good evening to the Honorable Ministers, Minister Foster Cummings and Senator the Honorable Avinash Singh, and indeed all the other panelists who are here this afternoon. I do believe that I am really privileged to be here because the discussion is, as I said, very robust and really raising some very poignant issues. As representing 4-H, I would want to make the case that 4-H is actually the ideal platform to begin to address the challenge that this panel faces today. Not just to engage the youth, but to also attract the youth. And I would think that most, if not all, of the panelists who are here this afternoon, and indeed all of the listening audience, we will agree that the school, the education system, provides the earliest opportunity to engage youth in structured agricultural practices. But what is our reality? There's often many challenges, many constraints in the education system. The time constraint, because in the primary school, there's the challenge to deliver the SCA curriculum. In the secondary school in agricultural science, there's the challenge with the SBAs and management of time with the delivery of the CSEC curriculum. There are challenges of funding to provide the necessary technical and the experiential learning that is required to really motivate students. And many students, by the time they reach the Form 3 to be able to choose agriculture as a career path, very often they're already demotivated. And you find that sometimes the students who end up choosing agriculture choose it as a last resort. So what we really need, there's a need to expose our youth, our young persons, and to provide them with what I consider the practical skill set to be motivated in agriculture. And that in itself is going to be a bit of a challenge. But 4-H, we are saying that there is an opportunity right here, because 4-H captures students from standard 1 all the way to age 35. There are over 200 4-H clubs, primary and secondary, in Trinidad and Tobago, as well as community-based clubs. And we are hoping that 4-H could be introduced into all schools and the 4-H model be adopted for delivering the agricultural skill set to our young people. I think 4-H, with its project-based approach to learning, is really a perfect platform to deliver this skill set. The agricultural technologies in crop and animal husbandry, things like grow box, hydroponics, aquaponics, get them hands-on in producing broilers, layers, rabbits, and indeed the agro-processing. And for that to really take root in Trinidad and Tobago, for that to really expand and become more a common name in Trinidad and Tobago, we require it to be a sustainable business model. And here we need the stakeholders to really step in. The government, the grants, the private sector has to really adopt schools and adopt 4-H clubs, so that every school and every 4-H club will have these projects engaged in, so that you find that by the time a student reaches to Form 3 level in the secondary school, agriculture will definitely be an opportunity for them. It will be something that they're inspired to go into, and they will already have adopted a large skill set in moving forward.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Clark. And you know, you're right in terms of how the system, the education system is structured. By the time you reach that age to choose subjects, you really are demotivated. I remember I actually did agricultural science for CXC, and when I chose it, you know, many persons ask me why. Why did you choose agricultural science? There's no future in that, but there is. And I'm really happy that we're having this discussion to show to our young people that this is an industry that is worthy of you being part of. And I think that is pretty dynamic. So I want to shift the conversation now, where we're going to talk about food security and hunger and the level that we see that happening in our part of the world. So the 2021 report on the state of food security and nutrition in the world highlighted that world hunger and malnutrition increased in 2020. The report emphasized that 14 million more people in Latin America and the Caribbean were affected by hunger as compared to 2019. Now, those are staggering figures. And I want to invite Minister Singh. Do you think that this rise in numbers was strictly a result of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Thank you, Ms. Scott, for that question. And certainly, I mean, when we look at the national and in the international landscape where the food security and the malnutrition reports are coming, certainly we can see from the statistics that it was partially due to the COVID-19 pandemic. I mean, when you look at the pandemic resulted in extended periods of lockdowns in almost every country, which led to higher unemployment rates, which also led to global inflation. And in our own cases here in Trinidad and Tobago, where you would have seen persons with less disposable income. So I would definitely say, yes, COVID-19 has significantly disrupted, you know, the whole system of food systems, the transformation of food, and so on, food production. Just the fact that we have the luxury of having this webinar virtually. Agriculture, by the least means, cannot be done virtually. It's a practical approach, right? Most of the elements and the processes in agriculture, it's hands-on, it's practical. So you could you could have really not used any mostly virtual measures while the countries were in lockdown to produce food and go into processing. when you look at inputs in the whole value chain, input manufacturing, and most producers and farmers here can tell you the cost of fertilizer, the cost of seeds, the cost of inputs significantly rise. And this was due to the supply chain disruptions. I can tell you from a personal point of view, in January last year, it would have costed around $2,400 to ship a 40-foot container. Last week, I had the option to review the shipping rates, and would you imagine it's now $16,800 to ship the same 40-foot container? And this is the movement of goods, movement of cost of inputs, and so on. Another significant point I want to make in terms of which led to the increase in world hunger and malnutrition, we always came across this issue of climate change, and more so now in Trinidad, we are seeing, somebody comically made the point on social media that they would expect lagoons to flood because it's low-lying areas. But how do you expect the hills of Maraval and the hills, Diego Martin, also being flooded in some extent? So this is as a result of the inconsistent rainfall patterns. Places are getting drought, where we would see lower prevalence, increase in sea level rise in certain areas, low-lying areas. I can tell you directly in front of my house, walking distance is the Caroni Swamp, and I can tell you land that I knew used to be highlands which my parents farmed. It's now underwater, and it has turned to swamplands. So it's a world issue. When you look at increase in the prevalence of pests and diseases, right here in Trinidad, we have seen, when you look at the Southlands, the locust invasion year after year. We have seen the exponential increase in the giant African snails throughout the country, and it was just in one area back in 4 years ago. Now it's throughout the entire country. So, and then I want to touch on something that Tanisha raised, which is extremely critical and important in dealing with world hunger and malnutrition, and that is the need for research and development. And more so, I want to really focus it down to get crops and varieties and cultivars that are higher yielding. And it can be done via tissue culture, genetic modification. I know we look at that point, genetic modified foods, with scorn. But in the Green Revolution, you'll realize they had to come up with something to feed the population. And when you look at what we in Trinidad are exposed to, we just don't have the significant flat landmass to go mechanize to grow enough corn for our animal livestock sector where feed is concerned. So we have issues, and we have to really bring more young people involved, get them attracted, as some of the other panelists would have mentioned, to get into food systems and use the technology, as Tanisha said, use the labs, get genetic material that is high yielding, resistant to pests and diseases, so that farmers at the end of the day could really get higher yield, and higher yield means higher productivity, higher profitability, and more food on the tables of our population. Thank you, Ms. Scott.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Minister Singh. So we're seeing that it's not just the COVID-19 pandemic, but it's also climate change that is affecting hunger in Latin America and the Caribbean. I want to invite Dr. Joseph to kind of touch on this question as well. Do you think that this increase in hunger across the Caribbean was strictly a result of the COVID-19 pandemic?
Yes, good evening, everyone. Good evening to Ministers Cummings and Singh, and also distinguished panelists and members of the audience. I'd just like to reinforce what Minister Singh would have been sharing. COVID-19 alone, we cannot only just focus on COVID-19 as being the strict cause of malnutrition and hunger in the Caribbean, particularly because in the region we have been exposed to pre-existing challenges and conditions, as he mentioned, climate change, variability in weather, hurricanes, floods, droughts, etc. Most recently in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, with the volcanic eruption, that would have caused a very, very great displacement to the agricultural producers there as well. So we have all these natural resource hazards that also contribute to impacting food production within the region. Yeah, so to simply blame it on COVID-19, COVID-19 occurred in 2019. It brought the world to a grinding halt, and it would have exacerbated existing conditions that we have been challenged with as well.
Thank you very much, Dr. Joseph, for that. Now, I want to invite the Honorable Minister Cummings again to chime into the discussion again, but briefly just tell me, right? Seeing that young people have been impacted by hunger and malnutrition, what can we do, or what has already been done to mitigate these circumstances?
Hunger and malnutrition, of course, is not a matter that should be taken lightly. It's not unique to Trinidad and Tobago. It's a worldwide phenomenon. However, we must admit that in Trinidad and Tobago, we do have a much better situation existing than many countries around the world. And we do have a very robust social safety net in place to treat with those who are most vulnerable in our society. We do have extended families and stuff, NGOs and faith-based organizations who all, in addition to the efforts being made by the government, all make their efforts to contribute towards our social safety net and assist those who are most vulnerable in society. So yes, I agree, and that we do have issues pertaining to food security and malnutrition and so forth. I do agree that to some extent, the effects of COVID-19 has made things a bit more difficult for many persons who may have been displaced at their workplace and so forth as a result of that. But we are a resilient society. We are going to bounce back from this. We have already started to see signs of that. We are going to address those issues as they confront us. And as we get more persons tuning into what it takes to feed a nation, get our young people more involved in agriculture, I'm sure that we're going to make these strides in the right direction.
All right, thank you very much, Minister Cummings. Minister Singh, have we been impacted by hunger and malnutrition? Now, of course, these statistics are there. So I want to know, how do you think we can improve this situation?
Certainly. So when we look at the situation here in the Caribbean and zoom down here in Trinidad and Tobago, I want to congratulate the government's approach in dealing with trying to, rectify this issue of having our own population looking for food, ensuring that they are not out of food on their tables and so on. And I just want to turn to a couple of the initiatives that was done by the government. And this one, I want to congratulate Minister Clarence Rambarot for particularly and personally delivering to the population. And that initiative was called the Grow Trinbago program. When we looked at the landscape, and it came out at a right time, when you look, and I also want to comically state this sentence he always used: look at your kitchen cupboards, open your fridges, and you will see, because people always talk about the food import bill. People always say, well, we want to bring down the food import bill. You, every single person in this webinar here today, you control what you put on your plate. You go to the supermarket, you check your fridges, check your cupboards, and you see for yourselves where in your cupboards and fridges the food import bill can affect you and the country, right? And I always use the example, when you do this, you will be able to determine how to affect that food import bill. There's some things that we will always have to import: oils, our staples, wheat, some extent rice, and so on. But there are things that you can certainly do without or get something alternative in the sector. And that is where people like Mr. Jody White comes in. why buy, foreign macaroni and pasta when you have locally produced from Mr. White? And it's gluten-free for the health conscious, and you can get it, right here in Trinidad and Tobago I'm sure at a fraction of the cost. But, we always have this concept, if it's not made in Trinidad, it might not be good. We want to change that dynamic now, because we have the level of technology, we have the expertise, we have the persons to really drive the economies of scale of these niche products and all of these, fancy items, as we call it. In also dealing with this issue of malnutrition, I want to also look to, as I mentioned earlier, plant material. The Ministry of Agriculture continues to subsidize the availability and the cost of plant material to the population. Farmers, registered farmers, home gardeners, kitchen gardens, or just the general population can come into any one of these stations under the Agri Services Division and be able to purchase plants at a highly subsidized price. So when you look at some other steps, and Minister Cummings raised one in particular that I'm in love with, which is the agricultural homestead program. And why are we doing this? It is to, in effect, deal with malnutrition and hunger at a wider scale, because the government continues on that drive to put idle state land into production. When you drive through Trinidad and Tobago, you see how much land is abandoned, and we are looking at these programs to put it into active cultivation and use. And lastly, when you look at NAMDEFCO, we have delivered hundreds of thousands of food boxes to the vulnerable in society via these veggie boxes. And I always want to zoom down on this. When you give a food card, persons can go and buy anything under the sun, including foreign, imported, which I have no problem with. But when you give somebody a food box grown by our local farmers, packaged by our own staff at NAMDEFCO, you support local, you eat what you grow and you grow what you eat. So these are some of the initiatives that the government has taken to ensure that persons don't go hungry and to ensure that people always have food to eat as we go forward. Thank you, Ms. Scott.
Thank you very much, Minister Singh, for sharing with us. Now we're going to move on to the discussion and talk about innovation and digitization. And I just want to ask very, very briefly, Dr. Joseph, how does innovation and digitization impact the agricultural sector?
Okay, yeah, sure. Thank you for that question. In order to answer that question, I'd like to break it up into us having an understanding as to the two terms, innovation and digitization. Now, innovation, simply put, refers to taking something that's existing or old, as we would call it, and making it new, better, or improved, as the case may be. And digitization looks at transitioning from that sort of analog state, paper-based state, to the use of lots of digital tools, technology, example, social media platforms, and so. So if we are interested in taking agriculture forward, a merger of these two terms, innovation and digitization, is very much necessary. It should be embraced in order for, agriculture to be the best that it can be within Trinidad and Tobago and also the region. I just want to touch on what Minister Cummings would have said. We are resilient people. We have a lot of support mechanisms and services and so in place. And, honing into that can really make a very, very big difference once we change our mindset and we are willing to embrace what is going to transpire in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Joseph. Ms. Cupid, do you have anything to briefly add to that innovation and digitization in agriculture?
Yeah, just short. Dr. Joseph would have said that digitization would see us moving, right? See us transitioning. Now, a lot of people would watch at agriculture as, it is breakback labor, especially for females, right? It's breakback labor. And at Trace Farms, at my business, we and it is another female as well. And we are involved from field to packaging. And of course, there are physical strain and stuff like that. But when we marry the technology, with the traditional, that is where we make the difference, right? And I would say, I always would tell people, I said, listen, well, in Tobago, we have about 60,000 people to feed, right? If we're looking at it per month, right? We have 60,000 persons to feed. If we're looking at Trinidad and Tobago, we're looking at about, 1.3 million, right? That's what we're looking at to feed. And we can't do it. We can't do it without the technology. We, right now, where we are at in agriculture, we're not in the 21st century yet. And it would take us as the young people to take this sector and pull it into the 21st century. And I am telling you, it can only be done. It can only be done if we marry the technology with the traditional. Nobody and holding up no hose, no man wetting nothing. We're not doing that. Nobody not going and dip from no drum and no, right? There's technology for that. Go, do the research. Do the research, learn how to implement the different technologies. And I am telling you, once we do that, we will be able to feed ourselves and we will be able to transform this industry from one era to the other. But the young people have to get on board, and we have to get on board regardless of gender. I just have to throw that in for my females, regardless of gender, we have to get on board.
I agree. I definitely agree with you 100%. I want to take this discussion over to Ms. Ramprasad very briefly. Given your experience, what else do you think you can add to the discussion about, innovation and digitization in alongside what Ms. Cupid and what Dr. Joseph mentioned already?
Just to briefly add, of course, I know we're running out of time. One of the major challenges farmers would face when dealing with innovation is that, for many farmers, not for many, for all farmers, farming is their livelihood. And it is very difficult to take risks. And innovation is a risk. And so many times they stay, with what they're comfortable with, the practices that they've tried, tested, and are true. And, these are the things that prevents innovation or free innovation within the sector. It's very limited. However, in order to change this paradigm that we are in, it's important that we really look at marketing. Marketing is one of those tools that really helps farmers, and not just farmers, but agriculturalists, to become profitable. If it is we do marketing the right way, we become profitable. It will allow farmers to become a little more willing to take the risks and to innovate their practices and so on. And another thing that I just quickly want to add, I know, of course, Minister Cummings would have mentioned education and training and so on. But, the Agricultural Development Bank is a bank that I have good relations with, and, I do encourage persons to utilize the services. However, and during the last year or so in trying to gain funding for my master's degree, it was sad to finally realize that the Agricultural Development Bank does not provide the opportunity for capacity building within the sector. And it's not just that. I was actually told that it isn't within their mandate to do so. And so this is something that on a policy level, because this has to be changed by Parliament, that this is something that we need to look at and resolve. And, because with capacity building is only then we can really innovate and innovate in a manner that is really meaningful.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ramprasad. We're going to move on now from hearing, we heard our panelists, and I directed questions to each of you all specifically based on your level of expertise. And now I have another question here that is just in general to the panel. So if you're interested in answering the question, as soon as I finish answer, just, turn your mic on and answer. But of course, please be minded that we still have to get to our viewers. So let's keep this brief as possible. So financing agribusiness pursuits is a reality that all agro-entrepreneurs have to undertake at some point. what is that one practical piece of advice you would give to someone seeking finance and starting in your area of agriculture? All right, I'm not seeing anyone unmuting their mic, so I'm going to call on someone. So let me invite Jody to chime in on this.
The thing is that I think that once you look to start to get into agriculture, it starts off as a business sometimes, and then you develop a passion for learning, and you develop a sense of responsibility towards it, and it grows beyond just operating for profit, and it gets you into thinking that, yes, profit is good, but you have a duty to make a change and make a difference. And I think for most of the panelists here as well, is one of the things that kind of drives us continuously along and why we kind of persevere within the sector.
Thank you very much. Now, I want to be able to just wrap up this formal part of this section of the webinar tonight and ask our ministers, lastly, just let us know, what is the number one way, we just want one answer, the number one way we can make a substantial improvement for young people interested in agriculture? So I'm going to ask Senator Avinash Singh, if you can just go first and give us just that one thing.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. I think if I were to rate it as the number one issue that has significantly deterred young people in getting into agriculture, it's that issue of land availability, land tenure, and issues surrounding land. That to me is number one, because you can't do any form of agriculture if you don't have land.
All right, thank you very much. Honorable Foster Cummings, do you have anything to add? What is that number one way we can make a substantial improvement for youth interested in agriculture?
Well, exactly as the government policy outlines, that is to make sure that following training programs by persons who have demonstrated an interest in agriculture, that we make all the support services available to them, which would be land, funding, technical expertise, and markets, etc. So a complete package, and this is exactly what we have in mind.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much to all of our panelists here tonight for answering our questions that we've prepared in order to spread more information about youth and agriculture. So now we're gonna move straight into the live stream from the audience for everybody from Belize, from New York, from Lopino, from Rio Claro, Mayara, Chaguanas, Diego Martin. Everybody has sent in a lot of questions. So now we're gonna get straight into them. But I've seen quite a few questions about land. So can we address that first and foremost, about that being able to procure land, especially for young people who want to get into agriculture? I've seen quite a few questions come in like that, so I'm just trying to merge it into one. So do we have any takers for this question?
Well, seeing that I represent the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries, I would tell you, and I would tell the population looking on, that we have a very dedicated minister, someone who has a wealth and a history and a track record in dealing with land and land matters, and that is in the Minister of Clarence Rambarat. And I can tell you from the first start we came into the ministry, what we found a significant issue, and that is an old paper-based system. And we have moved to digitize the entire database of land records, leases, renewals, everything that dealt with land. Because in the past, what it meant was that if you had to have a land lease renewed, it depended on somebody coming out to work on a Monday. And if that person is on sick leave or on maternity leave, your file will have to sit there. And what we have done is we have scanned, uploaded, and digitized the entire land record and database. At our ministry, we are probably about 85 to 95% completed. And this will allow us to fast track and be more efficient, be effective in dealing with land tenure issues. Persons die, they want to pass their land lease to their children, their offsprings. All of these things are tied up in documentation, volumes. I mean, I looked at Minister Rambra turn some pages of a file, and as he turned the pages, pieces of the pages was left in his hands to tell you how old some of these land records were, dating back to the 1900s, early 1900s. So, where land is concerned, and Minister Cummings shared earlier, some of the new initiatives and the new programs that the government is working on, and we named the Agricultural Homestead Program, and that is for young people who have intentions of getting into agriculture or processing or value-added, being able to apply for these homestead program. Of course, they'll have to go through the training, as Minister said. And then we have the system where persons can acquire state land through public-private ventures, and of course, the currently 1975 limited, those land parcels, the covenants on those leases have been edited and adjusted for those persons to be able to sell, lease, trade, or what have you, to get those idle lands into production. So these are just some of the issues that we are dealing with. And most importantly, digitizing our records will give us that extra edge to deal with the land matters as they come up. So if that would answer some of the questions.
Definitely.
Scott, thank you.
Definitely answered the question. Another question, we've been getting a few of these actually about what are the current grants that are available, especially to young people who are seeking an interest in agriculture. Where can they access these grants? What are the types of grants available? Are there grants available just to young people, or can it also be, you know, persons who are interested in agriculture and want to start their journey in agriculture? So I believe I should direct this question to the Honorable Minister of Youth Development and National Service, or perhaps to you, Senator, but anyone who wants to take this question, really, what are the grants that are currently available for our people who are interested in agriculture?
That question is best answered by my colleague, Minister Singh.
I'm afraid I was going to do that. So I'll touch on a few, and there's one in particular that has really piqued my interest, and I'm very disappointed because a lot of persons have not capitalized in that one, and that is the Agricultural Incentive Program of the Ministry of Agriculture. And in particular, it's called the Youth in Agriculture Grant. And, you know, there's a question that everybody asks, what is considered youth? What's the age bracket? And that document speaks to ages between 18 to 40, I think it is, who can apply for whatever venture they would have put out some investment into. And that is a $30,000 grant that is payable in two tranches, a $15,000 and $15,000 grant for a venture that you have been involved in. Outside of that grant, there's the ordinary agricultural incentive and grant and subsidy, sorry. And that is where you buy or you purchase first, and then you claim after the purchase. And that is if that is a incentive, and that is called a subsidy. So just some examples: a farmer. Now, I know the issue with this. It's for registered farmers, and I could tell you from where I sit, a lot of good farmers in this country are not registered farmers, and that is what we are moving towards trying to rectify at the ministry. So registered farmers, they can access grants in the form of vehicle incentives, capital incentives. Farmers can purchase a tractor and get back a rebate of $50,000. Every attachment that you buy for this tractor, you can get back 50% of that cost, up to $100,000 per year. And more particularly, the new grant that was launched recently, it's called the Agri Incentive Support Grant, and that is up to 100,000. And this one, it's not in the form of a subsidy or incentive where you have to put out the money up front and then claim it back. This is one where you put forward a proposal, an application. The application forms are online. You can get it and you can access it at the Ministry of Agriculture website, or simply do a Google search, Agri Incentive Grant Trinidad and Tobago, and the application form will come up, an 11-page PDF. The first 6 pages is the instructions or how to access the grant and how to apply. And the last set of pages is the actual application form. You put forward your proposal, and it's really geared towards this thing called innovation, digital application of technology, new techniques in agriculture. A lot of what was said here today will form part of those agricultural incentives and grants that persons, farmers, agri-entrepreneurs, processors can access through this application. We have already given out quite a significant amount, and it's up to 100,000, of course. And then persons wanting to go into agro-processing, research, market research, and things like that can go to our sister ministry, Ministry of Trade and Industry. In their website, you will be able to access a number of grants for persons wanting to go into chocolate making, persons wanting to buy machinery and equipment. Those grants and subsidies are accessible there. Of course, there are a number of other grants, small and micro, grant funding from other ministries, NEDCO, and so on. But of course, the Ministry of Agriculture grants is quite extensive. So I could stay whole night calling out grant by grant by grant. Simply visit the Ministry of Agriculture website and go to agricultural incentives and subsidies, and you can see the full listing there.
Thank you very much, Senator, for that answer. So I hope everyone is listening. You just visit the website and you will see the different grants that are available to you, and then you can apply, and then, wish you the best of luck in that. Now, going on to our next question, we're really trying to wrap up in the next 5 minutes, actually. There has been the question about predial larceny. That is something that has been scoring, and persons are concerned. Why should I get into this if people are going to come and steal my crop? Can anyone shed some light here on the panel for us? Possibly a farmer who's dealt with this situation?
Okay, I'm not sure if there are any other farmers on, except maybe Tanisha. But with the predial larceny is a very vibrant group of persons. I do have interactions with them from time to time, but just like every other department or ministry, sometimes they are strapped for resources, but I've never come across a situation where a farmer would have made a call and no one showed up. And for many persons, they make calls, persons are caught. And one time, when it reaches to the point where the farmer needs to go to court to say that this is the person that stole their stuff or their produce or equipment or whatever, the farmer then chooses to step back and say they are not willing to take this process forward. And this is the challenges that many times the predial larceny faces. And I think the ministry, if I'm a predial larceny department, Mr. Singh could correct me. They've now tried to do away with this by telling the farmers that if it is you waste our time, you will now be charged. But really and truly, I'm now really asking farmers that if it is that persons are caught, you make a report, they are caught, continue with the process. Because if it is these persons are allowed to continue doing what they are doing, it only wreaks havoc to you and your family emotionally and financially.
Thank you very much, Ms. Rampersad. Now, over to our last question. Unfortunately, we have to wrap up soon. So this is our last question, and it's about the homestead project that the Honorable Minister Foster Cummings has mentioned several times tonight. So the main question is, how do we access this project?
Very good question. I've been getting that question quite often from very many members of the public. There is an existing homestead program of the government that you can access through the regular channels through the Ministry of Agriculture and Lands. And what we are now discussing is the Youth Agriculture Homestead Program, which as I said, has a training component to it, so that at the appropriate time when all the decisions have been taken with regards to this program, the advertisements would be made for members of the public to apply to take part in the program. We're not at that stage as yet. I can tell you that we are vigorously working on all the arrangements to put this program in place, and the necessary advertisements will be made in respect of that program for young people to apply and be part of it. But in the meantime, there is the existing program of the Ministry of Lands and Agriculture that you can apply and take part in that program.
Okay, thank you very much for that information. So for those who are interested in that project, you heard the minister himself tell you how you can access it through the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries. So thank you everyone, to all of Trinidad and Tobago for sending in your questions. And we're so sorry for the ones that we couldn't take, but definitely keep asking the questions. The Ministry of Youth Development and National Service and the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries is always open to answering these questions on any platform that they get. I suggest if you have more questions, give them a phone call, go onto their website, fill in that comment section and definitely get the answers to your pressing questions. So thank you so much for contributing. And now we just want to get a final word from each of our panelists. 30 seconds, please, no more than 30 seconds. We have a curfew to catch, and I'm here actually physically at the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service. So let's keep this really brief. So I'm going to start with you, Ms. Rampasad. 30 seconds, your final thoughts on youth in agriculture, innovation and digitization.
30 seconds, wow. So, I just want to encourage persons to continue to be part of the sector, regardless of what field you may be in. There's always a place for you in agriculture. And, to the policy makers and those persons there, don't just play politics with the sector, but really make decisions that will empower others and so on. And, more importantly, profitability is one of those things that will really drive the sector and make it attractive to young persons and anyone in general.
Thank you. Now over to Mr. White.
This sector has a lot of opportunities. The one thing that everybody has to do is eat. So, as a business, I just think you need to think outside of the box. Try to see what you can do differently. Always look for efficiencies. I don't think you can go wrong in this sector as long as you continue to plan and work hard.
All right. Thank you very much. Ms. Cupid.
All right, yeah, so the opportunities are endless, right? Do not limit yourself. I want to encourage young people to get on board and remember that we will take it into the 21st century, and it is dependent on all of us to feed ourselves and to make this sector sustainable for everyone.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Y-Farm himself, Mr. Sanan.
Yes, I think it's, young people must come into this sector with their creativity, with their talents, with their innovativeness, with that authenticity as well too. As I always say, find the I in your idea and the you in your uniqueness and bring it into food and agriculture. And, you could find that unique thing, that niche that, that drives us into the 21st century. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now for our youth-led and youth-serving organizations, Dr. Joseph, what are your last thoughts?
Yep. Well, my last thoughts, I will just leave you all with two quotes that I really like to share with students during my classes. The first comes from Wendell Berry, and it says, "If you eat, you are involved in agriculture." And the second quote it comes from the Food and Agriculture Organization. "If you ate today, thank a farmer." Every day we have to eat, sometimes twice, 3 times for the day. So we have to be mindful to thank farmers and just be mindful of all the agricultural activities that would have been in place to get us the food that we consume. So thanks, everyone.
And thank you, Dr. Joseph. And Mr. Clark, your final thoughts.
The background image for Senator Singh was of a massive hydroponics unit where it was something that is a great advertisement for projects. 4-H schools and clubs need to have these in their schools. So we're asking the ministries and the ministers and all the other panelists here with the different businesses that they have, invest in 4-H, adopt a club, so that projects like these could take root. Thank you very much. Have a blessed night, everyone. Panelists, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. And to Mr. Shane John, your final thoughts.
Thank you very much, Ms. Scott. You know, this is definitely the time for us to start changing the conversation, and I'm very, very grateful that we have started. The council is very, very passionate about all young people, and definitely this is the time for us to start getting young people more involved, especially as it relates to agriculture. I want to underscore that the Ministry of Youth Affairs and also the Ministry of Agriculture, thank you for taking this initiative. The council is thankful and definitely ready to continue working with both ministries to ensure that the information available to youth is well accessible to said youth. Thank you again, Rukaya.
Thank you, Mr. John. And now we want to hear from our minister in the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries, who is himself an entrepreneur. So, Minister Singh, your final words.
Thank you very much again, Ms. Scott, and I must say you did an excellent job today in this webinar. Simply put, I want to take this opportunity to salute and appreciate and commend all young people who have chosen agriculture in whatever form or fashion to be their profession, and all those who have interests in the sector, please come on board. We need you, because food, as Dr. Joseph said, is probably the most important thing to be concerned about, because every day you eat, and thanks to farmers, you know, we have something to look forward to every day. I also want to, congratulate Minister Cummings, my colleague, someone who I've known for quite some time, and he has always been a true supporter of the young people, myself being age 32. And Minister Cummings, you are exemplar, and you have always been a role model to us young ones, myself included. And I'm looking forward to some great things from you at your ministry, and you have my unwavering support from the Ministry of Agriculture. So thank you all, God bless, and I'm certainly looking forward to many great things from this ministry and this panel and going forward.
Thank you very much, Minister Singh. And I mean, now the entire country knows your age, so thanks for putting that there as well. So, and last but by no means least, the Minister of Youth Development and National Service and host of today's event, the Honorable Foster Cummings.
Let me join with my colleague, Minister Singh, in congratulating you, Ms. Scott. You did such an excellent job. I think you handled this webinar, in fine style and very disciplined. You had all our panelists and participants were very obedient and took, great pride in what their contributions that they made here. We could not have had a better topic for International Youth Day. We could not have had a better group of panelists who all, in their own right, shared their contributions with us. I've said to my colleagues at the Ministry of Agriculture, Lands and Fisheries, Minister Rambarat and Minister Singh, if there's one ministry that the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service will have to stick very closely with and demonstrate to the young people of Trinidad and Tobago that agriculture is certainly an area that they should pay very close attention to, then the Ministry of Youth and the Ministry of Agriculture will continue to work hand in hand in that regard. Of course, we will develop many programs and opportunities for the young people of Trinidad and Tobago, the 550,000 plus young persons of Trinidad and Tobago. But at the forefront of that will be our agricultural pursuits, because as long as you can feed ourselves, then we are indeed the people and independent people. And also it presents business opportunity for our young people to both on the local market and the international market. I'm very excited about what the plans the government has for youths and for agriculture, and you have our full attention and commitment. As you would see, every week I journey to various parts of my own constituency and engage with the farmers throughout my constituency and find the ones that love the farming, and I name a farmer of the week every week, and will continue to do so. I think I have enough farmers in La Hoquetata Paro to name one every week. You've done an excellent job. As I said, we thank all our panelists, and once again, happy International Youth Day to all of Trinidad and Tobago. And I wish you all the best. Do have a lovely evening.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister Foster Cummings, for your encouraging words and wrapping it up really nicely. Ladies and gentlemen, as we close, let me thank our knowledgeable and distinguished panelists, you, our audience, of course, and the organizers of today's event, the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service. Please, I ask of you to continue the conversation and share your views on social media and include the hashtags Youth in Agriculture and MyDNSTT. Very important. Go to the websites and put in the comment section, pick up the phone, call, send an email. Your MPs are here, your ministers are here to help you achieve what it is you want to achieve. So we definitely look forward to hearing from you, especially from the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service. I am your moderator, Rukiah Scott. It has been my pleasure to be with you all here tonight. It was absolutely wonderful. I learned a lot, and now I myself am motivated to see what comes from the agricultural sector in Trinidad and Tobago. So thank you for tuning in to Youth in Agriculture, Innovation and Digitization, a production of the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service, making MyDNS ours.